Good evening. Thank you all for coming. This is the Wagoner Area Chamber of Commerce Legislative Forum, and we have our candidates that we've invited here this evening. We appreciate everyone with the Chamber that has helped put this on. I won't name names because I'll forget somebody, but sure appreciate the candidates, not only for coming this evening, but for just wanting to serve or serving. Being a public servant is a great and important and honored commitment. With that, welcome. I'm not going to waste the time when we want to hear the candidates. I'm going to introduce my good friend, Glenn Clark, the timekeeper, and he's going to give the invocation.
Thank you, Wade. If you would, please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we love you and we praise you. Thank you for the day that you blessed us with. And Father, I thank you for the United States of America, the country that you blessed each and every one of us to call home. I thank you for the freedoms that we have. I thank you for the right to vote. Thank you for the freedom of speech. And Father, I thank you certainly for the men and women who have sacrificed ultimately to give us those rights and those freedoms. So truly, we are thankful for that. We thank you for these that are here tonight. We do thank you for those that are willing to serve in public service. We ask that you bless all that is said, all that is done from this stage here this evening. We'll just thank you in advance for it. And most of all, we thank you for your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, in whom we have our faith, our hope, and our trust, and ultimately our salvation in. It's in His name that we pray and give thanks. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Glenn. We're going to try to keep this as simple as possible to allow you all to be the focus, and we are going to ask you all to give an introduction, 1 minute each. When we come back to the questions, I'll ask, starting here, I'll ask the same question all the way down the line, and your response, 1 minute, if you would. We did the math, and that seemed like the best way to boil it down. Now, the timekeeper, Glenn Clark, is going to explain how he's going to handle things.
Gentlemen, this is very simple. When Wade stops asking the question and you begin speaking, I will start the stopwatch. Again, as Wade said, you'll have 1 minute as a response. Whenever you cross the 45-second mark, give you 1 bell. Whenever you cross the 55-second mark, give you 2 bells. If you hear those 2 bells, obviously you've got 5 seconds to wrap it up. We want to be reverent and respectful of your time. Again, we appreciate you being here, but we ask that you be reverent and respectful of ours. So foresee absolutely, positively no problems. And again, thank you guys very much for being here.
Thank you, Glenn, very much for that. And I just want you all to know how fortunate you are to have Glenn Clark here. And my wife's not here, and I'm not speaking, because she got a habit late in my tenure of doing this, because she got tired of listening to me. And I sure hated seeing that, but probably rightly deserved it. So we're going to start out with an introduction. We want to ask each of you to give us a 1 minute introduction. Sheriff, I'm going to start with you. Sheriff Chris Elliott.
Thank you, Wade, and give thank you to the Wagoner County Commerce for having this, giving us the opportunity to come in and speak. My name is Chris Elliott, and I'm the 22nd elected sheriff of the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office. 4 years ago, about this time, I applied to be to be the sheriff here in Wagoner County, and my application went to the voters of this county, and they voted me in to be the sheriff. And over the past 4 years, we've reorganized the sheriff's office. We've increased our employees, our patrol deputies, our detention officers over 25%. More employees here, more deputies patrolling your street, more investigators investigating your crimes. And I would be honored to have another opportunity to be the sheriff again on June 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And next in line for an introduction, we have, as a sheriff's candidate for Wagoner County Sheriff, Mr. Kyle Johnson. Kyle, please give us your introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Russolo, and thank you to everyone out tonight. My name's Kyle Johnson. I graduated from Stillwell High School in 2003, where I met my wife during my senior year. We've been together since then. February 1st of 2003 is our anniversary, a little over 17 years now. I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps while a senior in high school, so I went in the Marine Corps immediately after. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I came to work at the Sheriff's Office in 2009. I started out as a jailer there. I promoted throughout the ranks of the jail. I promoted to field deputy, and from there became a field supervisor with the Sheriff's Office. I am a certified instructor, basic instructor, and I'm a field training officer. I've got numerous instructor certifications and leadership training. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to the commissioners' race, and we have here the incumbent, Mr. Chris Edwards. Chris, would you please give us a minute introduction of yourself, please?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. My name is Chris Edwards. I'm the current County Commissioner, Wagoner County District 2, your elected servant. After high school, I joined the Army, and after I got out of my enlistment with the Army, I went to school, got a degree, an associate's degree in diesel and heavy equipment technology. Started working for the county in 1990 as equipment operator, mechanic, and worked for 3 different county commissioners before I became a commissioner and was elected into office my first year in 2009. During that time, working for the commissioners, I was a road foreman for 8 years, bridge foreman for 2 years, and in the last 11 and a half years, I've been your county commissioner. Appreciate your support and look forward to serving as your elected servant for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. And still in the commissioners category, commissioners race, we have, for District 2, we have Mr. Randy Stamps. Randy, if you give us a 1-minute introduction, please.
Yes, thank everybody also. I've lived in the county my whole life. We raised 4 children and 6 grandchildren. We have a farm. I've been in construction for a long time. I've also gone out on jobs and come back and run crews and stuff like that. But I feel like that I'm very well qualified. I've got a license to handle equipment and stuff like that. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. My wife has worked in the courthouse for 25 years, and she's been a servant up there. I'd like to also be a servant as a county. I've always wanted to be a county commissioner, just see things that I've always wanted to do, and I'd like to run and do the roads and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps. We're going to move now to the race for House District 12 State Representative, and through the draw that we did so that we wouldn't be picking anyone over anyone else, we drew out of a hat. We're going to ask Mr. Justin Dine. Mr. Dine, if you would give us a 1-minute introduction of yourself.
Thank you, Wade, and thank you, Wagoner Area Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this event tonight. My name is Justin Dine, and I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up kind of working odd jobs all my life. Graduated from high school. After I graduated from high school, I started construction on my own. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, done a little bit of everything. Transferred, when I was in college, I transferred to College of the Ozarks, Hard Work U. I literally shoveled coal into a power plant boiler to pay for my college. My wife and I moved here about 10 years ago to attend Rhema. We have lived in the area for the entire 10 years. We both graduated in 2012. My wife went back in 2013 and graduated from School of Worship. She is one of the guitar players for there, and I've worked for AT&T for 10 years, and I would love to be honored to have your vote and work hard for the people of Wagoner County.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. And still with the House District 12 State Representative race, we have the incumbent, Mr. Kevin McDougal. Mr. McDougal, Representative McDougal, would you please give us a 1-minute introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Chamber. I'm Representative Kevin McDougal. I'm born and bred, raised right here in Oklahoma. Left Oklahoma to serve in the United States Marine Corps, had 3 combat tours with the Marine Corps, served as a drill instructor at Parris Island, South Carolina, and decided to come back and finish my degrees. I've got an undergrad degree from Southern Nazarene University, a master's in business from Phoenix University, and started my own company 13 years ago. We market law firms all across the country, And I've served now in the House of Representatives. This was going on my third term. And we've worked hard for the district and continue to work hard to bring businesses in. And I'm looking forward to serving a third term with you guys again if you'll vote for me on November 30th. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative McDougall. I appreciate that. And that winds up the introduction phase of our 6 candidates. And I do want to reiterate, and I'm sorry I did it halfway through this, that we did draw out of the hat the seating arrangement. And we're going to start back here on what would be your right and go back down through the same order. But this was drawn out of a hat, so no picking any favorites. The Wagoner Area Chamber of Commerce just wants to bring you the candidates, and I'll tell you what, these gentlemen just did a great job keeping it under 60 seconds. I'm really glad my wife's not here because I couldn't do that, and she would definitely second that motion. Sheriff Elliott, I'm going to start with you. Our first question, what do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest asset?
Well, I think when you look all across this county, obviously the greatest asset that we have here in Wagoner County are the citizens that we serve. Without the citizens out there, we would be nothing. And as your elected sheriff, I've got a duty and obligation to protect and serve our citizens out there. We're very blessed here in Wagoner County, the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office and myself. I believe we have a high level of bipartisan support from a lot of the different residents here in Wagoner County. I think we've accomplished this because we're very transparent, we're very accountable. I have a high bar that I hold for all my employees, and I hold them to that, and I push for excellence at my sheriff's office. Elected officials have to remember the citizens are your employer, and as the elected official, you have to offer a high level of customer support to the citizens out there because they are the ones that put you in office, and you have an obligation to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Johnson, and unless you all tell me not to, I'm going to repeat the question. What do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest asset?
I believe Wagoner County's greatest asset is our family-oriented atmosphere that we have here within Wagoner County. And what I mean by that is, for instance, back during the ice storm, there were people from over here in Wagoner offering assistance to people over in Catoosa to go over and scrape ice off of each other's windshields just so that their grandparents didn't have to get out and do that. So, again, I believe that willingness to serve each other and help each other is Wagoner County's greatest asset, without a doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now, I don't want to cut in here. You just be sure. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Commissioner Edwards, I'll ask you the same question. What do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest asset?
I believe Wagoner County's greatest asset, kind of echo what the other two before me, is the people. The people that live here, that choose to live in Wagoner County, the people that choose to open businesses and run businesses here, the people that come to this county for recreation. Back in 1819, there was a gentleman named Augustus Shoto who had built a shipyard in the Three Forks area and started using his steamships to transport furs to the New Orleans area, and later on started shipping cargo. So it's people that have vision like that that has, what we have now today known as the navigation channel. And anybody that's been around in Wagoner County knows how vital and how big of an industry that is to our markets around the world, and it's because of the vision of a person that's in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Mr. Stamps, I'll ask you the same question. What do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest asset?
I would have to say that Wagoner County's greatest asset is their residents. They're always willing to jump in and lend a helping hand. For example, when a national flooding disaster happened in 2019, we had residents all over Wagoner County that dropped everything to help their neighbors with food, water, clothing, and shelter, as well as the downtown area when they had the Wagoner fires. We have a great emergency management team as well as the most qualified fire departments in the state. I know if I needed help, I would be proud to live in Wagoner County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps, and I'll move down here to Mr. Dine. Mr. Dine, if you would please explain your feelings about what is Wagoner County's greatest asset.
What is Wagoner County's greatest asset? We could talk about the vacant land that's available for economic growth here in the county, the low cost of living that we have. We talk about it being a wonderful place to raise a family, or its central location in the country, or all of the other benefits that we have living here. But the single greatest asset that we have here in Wagoner County is the people. Over the years, I have been in a great many homes here and have met many wonderful people that call this home. The residents that call Wagoner County home are a diverse and resilient bunch. They are willing to help out their neighbors in times of need and are very hardworking. This is indeed our greatest asset here in Wagoner County.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. I appreciate that. Representative McDougall, would you share your thoughts on what you believe Wagoner County's greatest asset is?
Absolutely, Wade. And going sixth, I guess you can tell I'm probably copying from everybody else over here. It is the people. We as state representative, I have to make sure that they have every opportunity for a good education. We need to make sure that their education and people in the school districts have local control of everything that they need. To provide them every opportunity for good jobs, to start businesses. Absolutely right. We've got a lot of assets here. We've got the river. We've got the highways. We've got the railroad that can bring businesses in. I've been working with local businesses and businesses from out of state to get them to come into Wagoner County, and we've been successful. We've got a number that are still looking that we're hoping to get, and so we're going to work hard to get that. And without a doubt, though, the people of Wagoner County are outstanding. They are hard workers, and I know that because I'm from Oklahoma, born and raised just like they are on a farm. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you, Representative McDougall. Appreciate that. We're going to move to our second question and back up the line here. Sheriff Elliott, what do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest obstacle, and what would you say is your solution?
In 2010, the population here was right around 71,000 according to the census. Now, I've heard conservative estimates we're going to be pushing 85 to 90,000 people in the next census. So with that said, Wagoner County is going through growing pains right now. And so our duty and obligation as elected officials, as me as sheriff, is to continue to grow the sheriff's office to meet the needs of the community. We've done that in the past 4 years by a 25% growth in the deputies and investigators in the field. We've also got to start learning how to work smarter and not harder, utilizing technology, streamlining our operations, and while maximizing every tax dollar that is collected. One of my solutions to that is a program that we're going to start in a jail where we're going to bring in a video conferencing or video visitation for the inmates, which is going to free up many, many man hours on Saturdays and Sundays for visitation. So we have to think forward.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Johnson, what do you believe is the greatest obstacle for Wagoner County, and what would be your solution?
I believe the greatest obstacle, as from a law enforcement perspective, that we in Wagoner County face is the pendulum of public perception that sways back and forth. Right now, law enforcement is at a low point. People in general have a negative perception of us. Now, so the pendulum has began to swing negatively towards law enforcement. So when I'm sorry,
Take your time.
Can I start this over?
No, we have to stay with the time, but just take your time. Just tell us what you think from your heart.
So I think the solution that we need is to get back to community policing. So it doesn't matter what's going on in Atlanta, Georgia, or Seattle, Washington. People in Wagoner County, Oklahoma are going to know that our law enforcement here is committed to the citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Edwards, what do you feel like is Wagoner County's greatest obstacle, and what would be your solution?
I believe the greatest obstacle we have in Wagoner County is the growth. We have, in the last census, Wagoner County was the second fastest growing county in the state of Oklahoma. Along with that, we have some wonderful, great neighborhood and housing developments that are going in across the county. Along with that, when that happens, we have a lot of construction traffic. The tax revenue that is generated from houses is an ad valorem-based tax, which we receive no revenue from the ad valorem monies for road maintenance. And so that's part of the problem with when we have extra heavy loads of concrete and different things like that is caused by the house development. The solution to that is continue to work with Wagoner County Economic Development to help bring commercial businesses and industries into our counties that do generate a tax revenue, which at those revenues we have monies for road repair and maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Mr. Stamps, what do you believe is Wagoner County's greatest obstacle, and what would be your solution?
Here in Wagoner County, our biggest obstacle is the infrastructure or roads. Our roads need to be in good condition for our residents, farming communities, as well as our visitors. We have a beautiful Fort Gibson Lake area that is right here in our district that needs to have easy accessibility. People traveling our county roads may want to build homes here or businesses here. We need to fix the holes in our roads, resurface the ones we can, and dig some ditches to help with our flooding issues.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps. Appreciate that. Mr. Dine, I'll ask you, what do you think is the greatest obstacle for Wagoner County, and what would be your solution?
Sure. I believe the greatest obstacle that we face is the economic impact caused by COVID-19. It is causing some serious problems, and getting our economy back on track is the top priority. I look forward to working with Governor Stitt to roll back redundant regulations, encourage job creation, and to make not just Oklahoma great, but Wagoner County great. We need to create an environment that allows our job creators to create good jobs. As companies are moving their supply chains from China back to the U.S., our central location here in Wagoner County makes the perfect place for new investment. I will build a dialogue between these companies and our local leaders to attract these businesses here.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. Representative McDougall, what do you feel like is Wagoner County's greatest obstacle, and what will be your solution?
Absolutely. The last few years, I've seen local and state leaders, government, getting in the way of entrepreneurs and business owners. That's been a great obstacle. I'm proud to say that during COVID-19, one of the greatest things I'm proud of for this county, I called the law enforcement officers, I called the city leaders, and I told them you cannot shut down a business that does not want to shut down. And we had tanning beds open in Wagoner because that business wanted to be open. So keeping the government out of local businesses will allow us to grow and do more. I've worked with the businesses that are going into Wagoner, for instance, and some of their toughest times are going through the red tape to get that business off the ground. I'm proud to say that our county commissioners have worked hard to do what they can, and we've worked hand in hand, as well as working with the governor to make sure the businesses get out of the way, or government gets out of the way, rather, sorry.
Thank you, Representative McDougall. Appreciate those. We're going to move to question 3, and I just want to say, you heard the greatest asset that all of these gentlemen feel like are the folks, the residents of Wagoner County, and that is so true. And I believe these gentlemen have a servant's heart, and that's extremely important to serve in any level of any elected position. Also, they have different ideas on the obstacles. Very interesting. We appreciate your thoughts on this. We're going to move to the 3rd question. And Sheriff, I will ask you, what specifically makes you qualified? What do you feel like specifically makes you qualified to serve in this office?
Well, first of all, I have over 30 years of law enforcement experience that I bring to the table to manage the sheriff's office. 27 of those years came from the 2nd largest municipal police department in the state, the Tulsa Police Department. There I was afforded the ability, I've investigated hundreds of criminal investigations, navigated hundreds of criminal crime scenes with a high level of success. My management style at the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office is I am performance-based, and I make that no secret to my deputies. If you're subperforming, it's my job to find out why you're not performing and give you the tools and the training so you can perform. I've spent over 4 years managing the Sheriff's Office. I've got over 80 employees, managing over a $3 million budget. I understand and embrace that being a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars is paramount to success. In fact, I have not asked for an increase in my budget in over the past 4 years. I've given money back to the commissioners every time we've sat down at the table for budget time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate that. Mr. Johnson, What makes you specifically qualified to seek this office?
Folks, I want to apologize for just a moment ago. I do recognize that as a deficiency of mine. I'm not a public speaker. I don't have a lot of experience doing so. But let me tell you one thing that I do have a lot of experience in, and that is county law enforcement. I started right out of the Marine Corps at county law enforcement level, and I have worked my way through the ranks and garnered this ability to navigate through tough situations. I was promoted early on in my years as a jailer, and I had people here that were kind of looking down on me because I was the new guy on the block, and I was supervising people that had been here several years. So I think my experience in dealing with tough situations and being able to appropriately deal with those without causing further conflict is paramount when we're dealing with situations like we are.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Edwards, what specifically do you feel like makes you qualified for this office that you seek re-election for?
I feel like what I have to bring is my nearly 30 years of experience working for the county, the last 11 and a half years as your county commissioner. I have experience working with the different cities that's in our district, helping them with different challenges. I know last year we worked with the city of Wagoner when they had the flooding. We worked alongside them, providing them equipment to be able to run a pump to pump water out over the dike to minimize the flooding and the businesses and the homes that was affected by the flooding. I've had experience working in the county courthouse with the other elected officials, balancing the budget each and every year. I've also have experience with working in different weather conditions, whether that be a dry year or a year that we have ice on the trees or snow on the roads, and most recently the flooding, having experienced sandbagging and help providing a minimal damage to the property owners and the residents of this county and making the roadways safe to travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Mr. Stamps, what do you feel like makes you specifically qualified for this office that you're seeking?
I've worked construction most of my life, the low guy on the totem pole to management. I'm OSHA certified. I'm very familiar with heavy equipment operations as well as the mechanical side. I went to special training in Dallas, Texas for my national certification license in heavy equipment. I've worked with numerous companies, and I've worked with large corporations such as Walmart, Quick Trip, Sam's, etc. As well as working for these corporations, I've worked as an independent contractor to bid jobs, hire employees, manage job sites, and manage crews. I have worked with supplies and lack of supplies. I know how to maximize resources. I get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps. Mr. Dine, what do you feel like makes you specifically qualified to seek this office?
What I think is a qualification is that I am not a politician. I would like to be a statesman. I also have experienced the ups and downs of life and have successfully met every task that I have set out to do. With my career at DirecTV and AT&T, I have been in the homes of thousands of families here in the area, and I have seen exactly how the decisions made at the Capitol affect the average Oklahoman. As a small business owner, I also understand the struggles that small business owners have to overcome. Last year, I was on the platform committee for the state GOP, and I worked on crafting our current state platform. I have worked hard to have everything that I have right now, and I've overcome all the obstacles that life has thrown at me. And I will work diligently for the people of Wagoner County, just like I have in all the other areas of my life.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. Representative McDougall.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask you the same question. What makes you specifically qualified for this office that you seek re-election for?
Yes, sir. I once signed on a dotted line willing to give my life in defense of the greatest country in the world, in the United States Marine Corps. And I still continue to serve today. I served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps with 3 combat tours, and after leaving there, finished my education. Came back and built a business from scratch. Nobody gave me $1 to start with, simply knocking on doors to provide for my family. You can tell that by going to the state because my business is registered there and I do pay taxes there. So I built that business from scratch. In the 5th year, it was a $2.5 million business and it continued to grow. From there, I left and started this service to the greatest country, again, right here in Wagoner County, the greatest county. And I enjoy serving the people here.
Thank you, Representative McDougal. I appreciate that. I'm going to start back down here. We're going to start with our fourth question. Sheriff Elliott, I'll ask you first. What is your vision for the office in which you seek re-election for?
Elected officials' vision is important, and I have a vision, and one of the visions is to continue to contribute to the economic growth of this county. And we all realize that before big businesses will move into Wagoner County, which attracts the families and the young people in the houses, is they look at the community themselves. They look at two things primarily: your crime rate index and your quality of your schools and your roads. Wagoner County, we have an astronomically low crime rate compared to the rest of the state. We're at 15%. We're at half the state level. That's a 30% reduction. So I'm going to continue keeping this county safe and secure to encourage that economic growth. I'm going to do that by continuing to emphasize those core concepts of law enforcement that have made us successful: accountability, transparency, training, promoting excellence, keeping that open line of communication with our public and with our houses of worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Johnson, I'll ask you, what is the vision that you have for the office that you seek?
My vision for the sheriff's office is to provide fair and equal treatment to everyone here. I'll tell you guys right now, I am not for sale. I have not been going out and seeking contributions. I'm not that guy. I'm here to provide a service as the Constitution and the people want it. So my vision here is to provide that, and goodness. So what I feel needs to happen here is we need to go back to the core concepts of policing. And we need to get back out in our communities and start talking with the kids and do things like that. Why have we not contacted our tribes to help us out with this? The Cherokee Nation Marshal Service has one of the best SWAT teams in the state of Oklahoma, if not the United States. Why have we not reached out to them?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Efford. Commissioner Edwards. What is your vision for the office that you seek re-election for?
My vision is to continue road improvements. 3 years ago, we started doing asphalt overlay improvements in our lake areas. We still have more of those to do. We're also working on our major collectors. We just completed a 8.5 mile road project that ties Highway 51 into Rogers County, which is also now a direct avenue for the big paper plant that's up in Rogers County. And we have more road projects to do. Also been talking to a gentleman who is trying to start a 501c3 nonprofit organization to help get houses that are vacant, get them back occupied, back on our tax rolls, and to where they can, those fundings will, in result, help bring funding into our schools, which are desperately in need of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Mr. Stamps, what is your vision for the office in which you seek?
Well, it's not complicated. I have a vision for change and improvement. I plan to fix our roads, support our first responders, and go after good grants, be a steward of the taxpayer's dollar, and work hard. I feel like I have a fresh new vision for District 2 of Wagoner County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps. Mr. Dine, what is your vision for the office in which you seek?
Sure. To put a stop to the political machine and to make accountability and transparency to the people of Wagoner County and Oklahoma a priority, so we can see true conservative values thrive. The people of Oklahoma vote for conservatives because these are their values. Personally, these are also my values as well. And I will do all that I can in the position as a state legislator to allow the further the true constitutional conservatism. And I have not taken any pledges to any group or any organization, and I will not. The only pledge that I will make is to the voters of Wagoner County.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. Representative McDougall, what is your vision for the office in which you seek reelection?
Absolutely. My vision is simply to make Wagoner County as good as it can be and to provide everyone in Wagoner County with every opportunity to do what they want to do, to allow the farmer to continue to farm, to allow the entrepreneur to continue to build their businesses, to get out of the way so that they can do those things. My job, honestly, is to be a stopgap there at the state level to make sure the government stays out of our business, to build relationships there with the governor, to build relationships with the Trump campaign. We were working together today on this thing this weekend where the president's coming into town. Those relationships are vital, and those relationships are vital for Wagoner County because that's what allows me to get things done for you. I've answered every email. Everyone has my cell phone. It's public on my website. It's public on my Facebook page. They have direct access, and I'll continue to fight for you.
Thank you, Representative McDougall. Now, we have a question specific for each office. I'm going to start with the sheriff. I'm going to ask a sheriff's question for the sheriff and Mr. Johnson. And then we'll do the same with the county commissioners. We'll do the same with the state representatives. Sheriff, I'm going to start with you. What ideas do you have for building and maintaining a good working relationship with all of the local emergency agencies?
Well, the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office experiences a great working relationship with all the law enforcement entities in the state. You can talk to any of the chiefs or any of the leaders around here. They all agree we can't police this county alone. It takes all of us working on the same team to be able to do that. The key to that is having great communication and great interagency cooperation and understand what incident command means on a major event. Now, I can sit here and list you all the examples of interagency training, interagency cooperation with the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office, but I can't do it in 60 seconds. I do recall using the Cherokee Nation's tactical team to assist us on a high-risk search warrant about a year and a half ago where the Wagoner County Sheriff's Office didn't have the training and the equipment that we needed to serve this high-risk search warrant. They came out, we worked in cooperation with them, and we successfully served the search warrant. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Johnson, I'll ask you the same question. What ideas do you have for building and maintaining a good working relationship with all the local emergency agencies?
So that's what I've done throughout my entire career is work to maintain a good relationship with our fire departments, our emergency management. These guys are awesome, and thank you all, every one of you, every single fireman, member of emergency management. Now, I think that we need to keep building on this relationship, and what we need to do is for instance, Broken Arrow Police Department. We rely on Broken Arrow Police Department to come and take our calls more often than they rely on us. So that goes back to working with like the Creek Nation or the Cherokee Nation. Those guys are ready and eager to come out and work with us. As I said before, those guys have one of the best SWAT teams in the state of Oklahoma, and those guys are eager to come over here. Why have we not reached out to them more frequently than we do?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We're going to move to the county commissioners. And Commissioner Edwards, and we'll start with you. As county commissioner, would you make every attempt possible to apply for funding available that would benefit Wagoner County?
Most absolutely. Here recently, I have acquired over $850,000 towards road improvements, overlays. Part of that which was resulted from the lake access funds that we had available. We use that money for guardrail and guard cable in a lot of our lake areas. We've used that to upgrade drainage areas and replacing drainage pipe on our roads. We've also had, I just had $37,000 through the last 6 or so years to go towards our dumpster rental when we have our trash off day for the solid waste program. We are currently in the process of trying and applying for a build grant, which will be a $5 to $6 million grant for another road improvement. And last year, we opened up the first CNG gas station in Wagoner County at zero cost to the taxpayers, which generates money back to the county each and every month.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Stamps, I'll ask you the same question as County Commissioner. Would you make every attempt possible to apply for funding available that would benefit Wagoner County?
Definitely. I would pursue all funding available. For example, during the 2019 national flooding disaster, District 2 was greatly affected. District 3 and District 1 were affected also. District 1 received $36,000 and has more coming. District 3 received $200,000 and has another $100,000 still coming. Can you imagine what that also could add to our deal and help us? As you imagine, District 2 did not receive anything, the largest district and had the most damage, according to public records. In fact, it wasn't even applied for. I appreciate your vote on June the 30th.
Thank you, Mr. Stamps. I'm going to move to the state representative race. I'm going to start with Mr. Dine. Mr. Dine, are you in favor of state question 802 to expand Medicaid in Oklahoma, and why or why not?
Sure. No, not in the current way that it is written. It will be bad for Oklahoma and Wagoner County. Oklahoma would be obligated to provide for people up to 138% of the federal poverty level, regardless of whether or not Congress continues to fund a large portion of it in the future. U.S. Congress would actually dictate how much money leaves Oklahoma's treasury to fund this. All the Oklahoma legislature would be as a conduit to finance the federal government's policy decision. This will cause deep cuts to other state agencies to pay for it, and Governor Stitt and myself do not support this. There has to be a better solution, and one that I intend to work on. I intend to sit down with leaders in the healthcare industry and to find out their needs and other legislators to work on a better plan that serves Oklahoma and doesn't rob us.
Thank you, Mr. Dine. Representative McDougal, I ask you the same question. Are you in favor of state question 802 to expand Medicaid in Oklahoma? Why or why not?
Thank you, Wade. I have some concerns with state question 802, the way that it's written as well. I think it's going to be a question for the people. At one point, it was polling 65% success rate among Republicans in the state. It's not polling that way anymore. This last year, we had Sooner Care 2.0, which the governor put together, which is exactly this plan, but it was how do you fund it? And we figured out a way to fund it without raising taxes by using the hospital shop program. One thing we need to know is it's a $5 million impact to Wagoner County if it passes. It's for people who are $17,000 a year or less, or a family of three who earn $29,000 a year or less. It also impacts the state of Oklahoma, if it passes, 9-to-1 return. So you're paying federal tax dollars in. It's an opportunity to get them back, but I am not saying vote for the.
Thank you, Representative McDougal. And that concludes our questions for the candidates. I want to tell you all, I appreciate you very much for coming, participating, giving us your thoughts from the heart. And that's the main thing, folks, is I don't care who you are, if you'd like to serve in any elected position, and there's some more of you out there I can't see right now because of these lights. But the main thing is what you have in your heart, and the rest of it will come. You want to serve, whatever the job might be, the job description. If your heart's in the right place, you'll learn the job. So I appreciate these folks for participating, and some are currently serving, some wish to serve, and I appreciate that very much. And something we started last year, the Wagoner Area Chamber of Commerce, when we had our first forum like this that I was involved in, we asked my good friend Glenn Clark to close with a benediction. And at this time, I'm going to ask Brother Glenn to close.
Thank you, Wade. And folks, if you've ever wondered if the Lord has a sense of humor, He has set me up here on this stage right next to the only man up here that can take me to jail and arrest me, and I've double dinged him more than anybody else. So the answer to that is yes, the Lord does have a sense of humor. Again, thank you guys for being respectful to the bell. Thank you guys on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce for coming. And again, we do appreciate your service. If you would, join me in a word of prayer, and we'll be dismissed. Father, again, I do love you and I praise you. You know I do. Father, I lift up all of those that serve, and when the dust is settled and it's all said and it's all done, whether that's in June or whether that's in November, I lift up the leaders of our great nation. I lift up the leaders of our great state, our county, and our community. And my prayer is this: I just pray that they would keep their eyes fixed upon you, because I know whenever that happens, all will be made well. Father, we just ask that you go with us, lead, guide, and direct us as only you can. In Jesus' name, amen.